Westman. Assalamu alaikum. How's it going, family? Got a moment? Come walk with a brother. Just got a few things on my chest. You mind if I break bread with you? Just for a minute? 90 shots, 60 to the body, the beast strikes again against the guard. A moment of pause. Rest in peace, Jay. The sun can still shine on a rainy day. From where I stand, just another black man striving hard. You understand? I write these bars like the 12 tribes. I vibe when I see we come together. I ride like Maya Angelou, come closer. High five like my Baba. Right. Keep the light on bright. What a righteous mess. How do we fight the stress? They say we are divinely blessed, but the weights are pressed on my chest. My soul is on a journey called life. I sigh as I caress the dark melanated skin through the night. As I look and I see manifestations of one divinity. Breathe. It was inside that I holler to the source of the voice of many waters, beseeching the holy powers, signs and symbols. My rhymes not for the simple. That's me standing outside looking inside the window of the light dome. Wanna need to know. Now watch me flow. Some days I just want to be. Some days I just don't want to see. Yet it's often so clear to me. Sometimes things are just the way they meant to be. A burden that I must bear, yet one never too hard to bear. In the mirror sometimes I just look and stare. Oh, you think you're somebody. But what if I told you what you see is only your perception of reality? And nobody cares about the way you think things ought to be. Walk water cautiously. Make sure you walk in a way that's drama-free. Somebody pass me the keys to the heavens. My eyes, I see the God everywhere. Especially when I watch the way she moves. Especially when I observe the glow of the moon. Wake up. Meanwhile, back in the noise of the world, the murder, the hatred, the rain falls against the pavement. Red and blue lights flash in the distance. Black cries why. It was in that instance I knew the value of life should never be taken for granted. And damn it, the devil's a clear enemy. Give the light of God, you can handle it. Just hold on to the rope of Allah a little longer and make sure there's a light on in the dome of each one you're standing with. Don't assume or take the risk. The test, the way they meant for me, the way it's meant to be. After the rain is clear to see. Some days I just want to be. Some days I just want to be. Some days I just don't want to see. Yet it's often so clear to me. Sometimes things are just the way they meant to be. The test the way they meant for me, the way it's meant to be. After the rain is clear to see. Some days I just want to be. Just want to be.
Yes, indeed. I'm just doing a little sound check here. Make sure my voice can be heard. Okay. That came through right. So the volume's on. Okay, good. To begin with, start by saying Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Shalom, peace and blessings, hotep. And all the other relevant formulas which imply peace be with you. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Abdul Wadud, aka Questman, coming at you live. Soul Journey of Life, Conscious Social Media. Dear family, dear viewers, I have a perspective, and that perspective is we must strive hard to protect ourselves like we do when we want to be safe from the elements, from the rain, from the cold, from extreme heat. Anytime we find ourselves suffering from the elements, we find ways to protect ourselves. But what about the protections of the heart? What about the protections of the mind? What about the protections um, as a community? How do we protect ourselves? How do we protect ourselves from manipulation? You know, take for example, imagine you are in a society where police brutality exists and varying forms of blatant racism exist and various forms of covert racism exist. Imagine you live in this society, right, where you decide to stand up in protest and what have you. But just as you stand up, just as you were wanting to put your energy and effort into a cause that you believe in, your cause gets hijacked, name everything, whole scale hijacked, and then redirected into some other causes. Take, for example, um, some of the black movements in the United States of America, where the movement was specifically concerning uh, the injustices happening against black people in America. And while the marching and things were going on, suddenly the movement gets hijacked by another organization or another group of people that somehow is government sponsored. They brand the movement with a name and then redirect the energy of the movement to matters or factors that have nothing to do with the movement originally, right? And redirect it to things that, may even be uh, counterproductive towards the interest of the cause in the first place. Take, for example, many of you may have heard of a group or organization known as Black Lives Matter. This is a good example, and it's not the only example that I can think of right now, but it's one that's on the top of the mind. When certain events were taking place where there were several unalivings of Black people in America at the hands of police or law enforcement without any justification or what have you. Um, Movements started to spring up in support of the lives that were taken. Okay, later on, some of the movements ended up being hijacked or uh, absorbed into a bigger movement and sponsored and whatnot by uh, you know government-backed entities. Then, once the movement was now in that hand or those hands, the energy of that movement became redirected into elements that had nothing to do with the movement initially. For example, you would think that the Black Lives Movement was built upon supporting the values of Black lives. You understand? But then it ends up being hijacked, and then the cause of the movement ends up being directed towards uh, sexuality and certain sexual interests and things of that nature, having nothing to do with Black Lives Matter. Um, so why am I saying this? Um, we have to learn from our experiences, and we have to learn and not forget the type of trickery, the type of devilry, the type of manipulation, the type of shenanigans that comes from um, those who don't have our interest at heart. And if we forget those experiences, we're more likely to, become subjected to uh, said poisons all over again, right? This current movement or this current cause that we are experiencing, that being the cause of Burkina Faso, led by the uh, the existing president Ibrahim Traore, um, also called Captain Ibrahim Traore, a cause that has caught the attention of Africans and diaspora all around the world. So much so that it's even also um, perturbed the adversaries that um, had other interests contrary to that which Ibrahim Traore is standing up for, right? So much so that said opponents to Ibrahim Traore's um, cause have been tried, and continue to try to adamantly deter people's attention away from Ibrahim Traore, as well as, uh, attribute to him certain accusations that many believe are false. Um, for the purpose of the purpose of them making these false accusations being to make it easy for them to apprehend and arrest him, or even unalive him if it be possible, right? By doing this, they uh, eradicate what they believe or what they feel is a threat to their interests. They will even say to you that this is, they have to protect their interests. Understand that this is actually things that is said. Um, in order to do that, they have to manipulate you. One way of manipulating you is a direct way. You know that they are opposed to the cause of Ibrahim Traore. That's a straightforward thing. Okay, they don't like what Ibrahim Traore is doing. That's that they establish. But in order to back that up, they've got to say something of why they don't like what he's doing. If them telling the truth would not gain them leverage, you understand, or an advantage, they have to instead spread a lie. All right, they got to tell a lie with the hope that the lie will convince many people or enough people, so that way when they move for their action, their intended action, their desired action, they don't face any backlash, right? That's one way that they can, you know, seek to achieve their aims. But there are other ways that aren't so readily recognized. And I gave you an example with the Black Lives Matter movement. Not the people that were supporting Black Lives, but the organization that hijacked. That's, let me put that on the speak that, so people can understand the difference of what I'm talking about. But in the case of Ibrahim Traore, the matter is a little bit different. So let's say that the enemy of Ibrahim Traore cannot win through telling lies, through telling, spreading misinformation, right? Then what can they do? They can then dress themselves like wolves in sheep's clothing. What do I mean by that? Come to you as if they were all along supportive of the cause, you understand? While in reality, they would want to undermine the cause. Understand that when you're dealing with the kind of devilry that exists, that it has existed, and we've experienced for the past 400 years, you will realize that this kind of enemy will go to any extent to achieve their aims, right? Any extent. They want to have anything they think will work. That's what they will do, whether it seems just, upright or whether it seems downright dirty. They will try to do it, which means something to me. It means, how do we protect ourselves this time around so as not to be misled, so as not to be manipulated, so as not to be deceived? How do we protect ourselves? How do we protect our mind? How do we make sure that our hearts are beating with the right vibration? You understand? Standing upon the right support. How do we make sure of that? I believe that there is no better remedy to protecting your mind than knowledge. To have accurate information, to have accurate knowledge is what will protect you from the alternative. To chase assumptions, to stand on hearsay, to flow with mere emotions would not cut. It won't cut it. You have to have sound knowledge, and sound knowledge includes research, factual information, as we would say, receipts, but it also includes reason, the ability to reason, the ability to take what you've observed, to take, any information, whether it be fragmented or whole, and put it all before you and basically perform a mathematical observation. What do I have here, and what sense can I make out of what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, and how that makes me think? So we want to look into the matter of this event surrounding Ibrahim Traore and Burkina Faso, and the influence or the impact that that has on Africa as a whole. I think that if we do this type of thing, that we strengthen ourselves. It's good for us to have the passion, you understand, to have the passion to want to stand up for our people, for a cause that we know to be noble, honorable, and quite frankly, righteous. But it's even more of a solid position to be standing on facts, knowledge, to be standing on that. You understand? Because I've been paying attention to a lot of energy. We've got a lot of energy, and we always have a lot of energy when it comes to what we're passionate about, right? Check this, check this brother out right here, and just pay attention to the passion more so than the words. It's more the passion that I was my attention was drawn to over rather than just the words itself. Let's see, there we go. Take a look at this.
30th, I'm talking about we about to have fun. We gonna turn it to a block party. Bring your models, have fun. Post up, let's go to the streets. Let them know that we here to reclaim our throne. You ain't gotta give me reparations when we can come together and take them. Real talk, I'm on that type of timing. Yeah, it's really like it. It's really like that. Trust me, boy. America, God.
All right. So I think you can hear all that I just played there. What the brother was talking about was there is a a developing momentum in the form of a greater movement where people want to demonstrate on April 30th, right? At least that's the date that I've been looking at. I was trying to find some more details about the matter, but all I was able to find was what it shows here on like there's a few reports I find online, like this one right here from the Sunrise, 30th of April, global march supporting Traore against foreign control. So I've been hearing a lot about this, a lot of emotion, a lot of feelings dealing with this. But I kept wondering myself, where are the adepts? Where are like the scholarly minds that have something to say about Burkina Faso, the cause of Ibrahim in general, and just how it's affecting African and diaspora altogether? You understand? Because sometimes when you look at the opinions of a scholar, it can kind of refresh you a bit and um, help you to focus in on what to do precisely, what to look out for, what dangers to protect yourself from, and if you're protecting someone else, how to protect them strategically. You understand? This is the benefit of listening to scholarly advice. You understand? So yeah, I was looking at this on 30th April 2025. There will be a solidarity march all over the world in support of Burkina Faso President Ibrahim Traore's struggle against foreign domination and exploitation of African wealth. And this was published April 28th. So yeah. This follows many attempts on his life resulting from resistance and rejection of foreign governments that have, over the years, been benefiting from the wealth of the Sahel region, especially mineral wealth, right? So that's the one of the articles I was able to find talking about the march supporting Traore. Now, let's see.
This is for entertainment purposes only. Have you seen, family, how Africans across the world are responding to these threats that Trump and his people have
I hope you
issued
guys can hear
against Traore?
this.
That I don't know, that general who was saying that Traore is using his gold to protect himself, and I don't know what. They have even decided, I should say, we have even decided that April 30th, there will be a global protest. Africans will globally take to the streets to defend Traore, because guys are like, yo, another Gaddafi is not going to happen on our watch. And you know what's so crazy? A lot of young African youth are
So yeah,
also offering themselves up to Traore and asking them if they can join his Burkina Faso army. I love it. I love it.
Living a dream, living the African dream.
Are you planning to travel, relocate, or invest in Africa? Before making permanent decisions,
so
equip yourself with the knowledge you need to make informed.
as you can see,
Travel, relocate, or invest in Africa?
there's a lot of passion about this. A lot of passionate comments, a lot of passionate words that brothers and sisters all over are giving, right? Which is an essential ingredient to motivate you to do something, right? But then what you end up having happen is we end up finding ourselves, let's say we were to gather together like water droplets forming a huge puddle. Then the next question would be, okay, now that we're all together, or now that we're supporting a common cause, maybe we're all together physically, mentally, however it be. Then you will say, well, what do we do? What do we go? Where do we go from here? How do we take advantage of this unity? how do we take advantage of this unifying energy, right? So I keep looking. There's another tab.
April 30th, a new chapter in Africa's story will be written. Across the continent and throughout the diaspora, Pan-Africanists, dreamers, believers, and freedom fighters will rise together in a historic march, a march for Capitaine Ibrahim Traore, for the leaders of the Sahel, and for the very soul of Africa. In every African capital and cities across the world, we will stand shoulder to shoulder. Where French and American embassies exist, we will deliver a solemn letter, a letter that embodies the will of the people, demanding an end to foreign interference in the Sahel. Where embassies are absent, we will gather at city halls, for wherever we are, our voices matter. At 10 a.m. local time, from Ouagadougou to capitals across the globe, we will march not only against the extortion and oppression of Africa, and not only against imperialism and neocolonialism, but toward dignity, sovereignty, and the actualization of the African dream.
Living a dream, living the African dream.
Show your support.
So clearly, this is an important moment in our time. But the thing that I'm communicating and advocating that we pay attention to is not allowing the enemy to hijack this moment and turn it into something else by hiding amongst us, pretending to be about the cause, and then altering the direction for which the cause is intended to go. They did this at the march in the White House during the time of Martin Luther King. They did this at the time with the Black Panthers marching to the White House, if I can remember correctly. They did this, as I mentioned earlier, with the Black Lives Matter movement, when anytime we got together and we started to succeed in unifying our voices, unifying for a common cause, they would hijack, they would infiltrate and hijack, and then alter the direction of the cause in disguise of being supporters of the cause, right? So I'm saying that because we need to be vigilant and mindful through all of this. We can't allow the same mistakes to creep in. We can't allow the same kinds of manipulation tactics, the same kinds of deception in a day and age where technology is very clever, very intricate. You understand? You can make images talk and dance. You understand? You could make up content. Literally, you could make up content that didn't even exist. So this is the day and age that we're in, and understand what we're standing for, understand what we're up against mentally, intellectually. We have to make sure that our game is up, because the enemy of this cause is making sure that their game is up. We can see, that in many ways we're out tech, we're outgunned, we're out this, we're out that. But what about unity? What about seeing in this a matter in which you belong naturally, right? And how can we do that without proper knowledge? And because the only way you're going to protect yourself from being misled by anybody, right, from anything, anywhere, is knowing what the facts are. For example, I'll try to give you an example. If I know that, let's say I'm clocking in at work, right? I know that I clocked in at 8 a.m., clocked out at 5 p.m., right? I got it on paper. It's documented. I've signed out on the check-in, check-out sheet. The paper says I was there at that time. Maybe even I have an app on my phone, all bearing witness that I was there at the time I said, I left at the time I said. So anything that anybody could say to the contrary of that would obviously be false. What I'm saying is we have to know the actual facts. We have to make sure that anyone we're defending them in a right way that's in their favor, in their interest, and not doing something that will cause more damage than good, right? It's like, it's understood through a medic will understand that when you find a man that's down on the ground, the worst thing you could do is try to pick him up. You understand? Rather, they will leave him like he is and put him on like a what do you call it, a linen or whatnot, and then they pick him up together as he is, because he might have fractured bones, he might have something that could rupture. You understand? It might cause if it's a bullet wound, the bullet wound might go in deeper. Any number of things. Yes, you want to help, you want to be a part of the help, but if you don't have the proper knowledge, you won't be helping, you will be causing more damage. And if you don't recognize the enemy's tactics, you'll be thinking you're helping the cause, but instead you're assisting the enemy in what they want to achieve. Some people, and I'm separating this from the people who are doing this willingly. You have people who willingly desire to operate as slaves to the master, operate as their tools. You understand? They would do their bidding. They would do the bidding of the adversary on call. You understand? Even now, as things are developing, in a neighboring country of Burkina Faso, where many of the groups that were trying to unalive Ibrahim Traore are now hiding in the same country. You understand? You have people who have no problem being contrary or counter to the cause that Ibrahim Traore is standing up for. You would think, like, well, wait a minute. If he's doing something that's in all of your interest, how is it possible for you guys to rise up against the brother? You would think that's the reason, right? But when people are well financed by the enemy, or when they have the things that they desire in their hearts, to truly desire, you'd be surprised at how easy it is to cause a person to turn on their own people. You understand? So this is what's happening. How do we fight against that? How do we stand up against that? How do we protect ourselves from falling in that? So those are people who've decided by choice to participate in support of the known enemy. But what about the people who do this unknowingly, who do this, who cause more harm than help out of ignorance, right? What do you do about that? People have a lot of energy, a lot of rigor, a lot of motivation to do something. But brothers and sisters, we have to take a historic lesson in our day and age so that we don't fall into the same problem again. Before, you could say that we had various excuses. For example, when you think of the transatlantic slave trade, there were many factors at hand. Excuse me, miscommunication, not understanding your enemy, not understanding what they're talking about, what their agenda is, trusting them, you understand, because you see them as just another, business partner or something like that, and allowing them to trick you all the while. On one boat, they have one flag and you think they're your friends. On another boat, they have another flag and you think, well, that's the enemy supporting your enemy. You understand? When in reality, it's the same people with different flags tricking you into believing that one's an ally and one's an enemy. One hand washing the other. You understand? This is what they do. This is the kind of manipulation they will bring to you. They will come to you speaking the gospel and then chop your head off with the other hand. So when you understand this is how the enemy behaves, why is it so easy for us to forget that when we need to remember it most? Why do many of us not value the importance of scholarship, of, standing on knowledge? So that way, when we move knowing exactly what we need to do. When you're, for example, when you're trained militarily, they're going to train you rigorously to be able to operate a certain way, to be able to perform different moves, different tasks. And you have to be able to do that effectively. You cannot take any risk of error, because one risk or one mistake can cost the whole troop, the whole group that you're with, serious problems. You understand? This is why it's a handleable care situation is not just, this isn't a moment of entertainment. It's exciting for many people, yes, because it's a big thing. It's affecting people all over the world. You understand? It's exciting. It's emotionally inspiring. You understand? It's uplifting, if you would, for lack of better words. All of that's there. It's really moving, but we have to make sure that the enemy cannot ever take advantage of us again. We keep saying that, never again, never again. You understand? But if we truly mean never again, then that means we have to not allow the same tricks to trick us again, not allow the same tactics, the same kinds of manipulation all over again. It makes me think of, if any of you watch WWE wrestling, fake wrestling, right? 1 minute, the wrestler comes out, everybody's cheering him. He's the hero. He's the main wrestler. They want to see him win. Next week, the same wrestler comes out and everybody's booing him. Well, just last week, they were all cheering him. Which is it? But just like that, the scheme or the theme of what they were, putting, for the audience was able to trick them just like that. So many tools to manipulate you with. And understand, these people have been working at it for a long time. They didn't just start doing this in 2022 when Ibrahim Traore rose up into power in Burkina Faso. They didn't just start it then. These people have been at this, doing their homework, plotting and planning and scheming for a long time before it got to this point. Hiding knowledge from you, hiding information from you, twisting textual words, twisting meanings of your Bible, twisting the translations that you read when you're trying to read the Quran, playing mind games again and again and again. Playing mind games. Manipulating you, making you believe something is what it's not, making you believe something is not what it is. And sometimes they will even tell you the truth. They'll speak the truth to you directly, while at the same time, there goes the lights. While at the same time, let's just do this right for now. They'll speak to you the truth directly, especially when they know you won't catch it anyway. How many movies have you watched, right? How many movies have you watched where the movie was telling you the truth, but it did it in such a way that the only thing you caught from it was entertainment? So I'm saying, pay attention, family. I want to play a clip here. And in this clip, this is a scholar I had been telling you about, right? This is a scholar that I've been telling you. And pardon me, the power has gone out, so I'm limited. Give me a few minutes here shortly, and I'll use some backup power. It'll give us a little more time to shine, right? But I want you to be able to really focus on what I'm about to show you next. So what I'm going to do for the time being, I want to go ahead and get the light situation right. So while I'm doing that, check out this song right here.
speaking in. You see the bigger picture, go figure. A strong black community just tastes bitter to the likes of little tykes blinded by the great white hype whenever we stand up to fight.
Wait, hold up. I got a question.
What's a life worth living when the world you're living is made up of so many who can't see the difference? Standing up for your own versus the hatred and bigotry in a land that claims to be for you and me. From sea to shining sea, the place is laced with the effects of the systemic races. So when the black man stands up, instead he's told to put your hands up, then he gets choked up and broke up. There's no love unless you be from among the docile, quick to throw in the towel, ducking and dodging to avoid fitting the profile. So I salute every black man and woman who understands the codes upon which we must stand. That reminds me, and I can never forget all those who stood up, sacrificing the comforts of life just to defend your rights and respect. And yet, where's everybody when it's time to really pull up and show up? Why can't we see that without true unity there's no luck? Hold up, they locking up those who legally suit up and strap up. We gotta speak up and quit sleeping on the moves we need to take up. Wake up before you're next on the list to get hemmed up. For real, bro.
United States versus John Johnson. Free John Johnson. Grandmaster J. The United States versus John Johnson. Free John Johnson. Grandmaster J. The United States versus John Johnson. Free John Johnson. Grandmaster J. The United States versus John Johnson. Free John Johnson. Grandmaster J.
This is a shout out to the general, a hell of an individual, and this is really pitiful. Hey, put your ear to the stereo. I know this may be liberal, I'm hoping you listen close. And he stood up for the beat, so I hope you don't turn cold. This ain't no clout chasing, about facing. Oh yes, it's about racing. Don't say we bout making a couple outbreaks. Y'all say y'all better make sure he make it out. Say it's about Jake. We don't mind breaking down every barricade. The state to the federal, we see a bunch of cannabis. A system full of animals. We thinking they can handle it. They got the right. Don't think you fighting just one, cause the righteous do come. I got a light with two guns, they too dumb. Screw tight, but I'm about to loose one. See, we don't do front, no, we gotta do something. We coming with a new front, NFC choked up. It's a brand new revolution, we got a solution.
Love is unconditional. It's not something that comes with a guarantee. Unconditional love means that I don't expect perfection. Unconditional love means that I love you because you exist.
United States versus John Johnson. Free John Johnson. Grandmaster J. United States versus John Johnson. Free John Johnson. Grandmaster J. The United States versus John Johnson. Free John Johnson. Grandmaster J. United States versus John Johnson. Free John Johnson. Grandmaster J.
You all said that you wanted this love affair, and I told you I would never forsake you or leave you. And I said that even if you turn your back on me, I would still love you. Because of that, I was always told that when you're doing things that please the enemy, you won't have a problem in the world. But when you're doing those things that please the Most High, then you can expect that your address will be the only address that the enemy has.
Their gold reserves, that is all those proceeds are just in exchange to protect the junta regime.
That's very good. They even managed to prove to all of Africa, to the whole world, that they are liars. When they want to attack a country, they paint the country as they wish. They say what they want about the country to make everyone hate and to push through what they want. We let Gaddafi die. Where are the consequences? Dictator, he did this, he did that according to their organization. I would say that it is a real pleasure to once again have the opportunity to say hello to you. Yesterday marked exactly 1 week since the incident happened. I am going to visit the place where the rocket fell, but know one thing, it is those who are there to protect you who unfortunately caused the incident. Because you see them stationed around, they surely tire you out a lot these days every morning, as they have increased security for several months, which brings a lot of clutter and inconvenience, but it's for you. It's so that no one can come and harm you here because you are very important. It's a strategic location. It was within the framework of their training that while trying to check a number of things, unfortunately, someone accidentally fired a shot. Those who were nearby over there and the one who triggered it were also. They were taken to Delgado that day. Thank God they left Delgado with some after effects, of course, because a rocket doesn't forgive, especially concerning the hand. Unfortunately, the rocket headed towards the RTB courtyard here. And we can still thank God because there were no actual casualties. There were 2 injured who were taken care of by the presidency's infirmary. Immediately, the aide-de-camp, after the meeting, was able to come and assess the damage and inform me about the condition of the injured, which was stable. I hope they are doing even better now. As a civilian, it's normal. The trauma.
What I'm showing you here, family, I'm showing you an interaction with Ibrahim Traore, and you've got some local media members there, some local citizens that are there who are presenting to him certain questions, right? And the reason why I felt, to play this particular clip is because I like to show character. You understand? Because the thing about character is that the way a person is, naturally, it tends to be, if they're real with themselves and real in public, it tends to be consistent. Like the way, if you see a person today, 3 months later, 3 weeks later, you should see the same type of personality. It shouldn't be too much of a difference. And one of the things that I've noticed about Brother Ibrahim Traore is his consistency, and also his consistency in interacting with the people. You understand? And I think that's one of the things that many people admire. That he is like an open book for his people, very transparent. And here he was talking about something something that was accidental that took place, and he was letting them, kind of reassuring them of the nature of what was going on. He didn't hide anything from it about it. He let them know all the details that was relevant, for them to understand what's going on. And that's exactly what you would expect out of a leader. You wouldn't want your leader to hide something from you that could be critical to your safety. So he's letting them know, like, hey, there was something that took place. There was sort of something of an accident, and the matter is being properly taken care of, and so on and so on. Now I wonder if I forgot the exact number, but I think it was right here.
We didn't come very early. We had to let them feed their lies. And that's what I was saying. Maybe they would come and say that the director was kidnapped, and even his wife, who might have believed their nonsense, would look and see. But now I see that they are lying. They have hatred within them. They are intellectually constipated. They try to fool people.
Yeah, pay attention to this,
individuals,
because
shouldn't listen to them.
What he's talking about here,
people.
He's talking about some of the tactics that his opponents have. The West and his opponents from among the West have. Their tactics of lying, their tactics of deceit, and like in ways like, well, here's what they're saying, but here's what you can clearly observe. You understand? He's often encouraging people to think, to pay attention, to look at the facts. You understand? This is a leader telling the people. The leader is not telling the people to just believe what you want, but to look at the facts and then draw a conclusion from that point.
It's nothing important. We don't run away. Never. We are soldiers, and that's the last thing that comes to mind. We don't retreat. We don't give up, and we don't kneel before anyone except our parents and God. So that's our mentality. They said whatever they wanted, and we watched them precisely because of that, which is why we didn't come very early. We had to let them feed their lies. And that's what I was saying. Maybe they would come and say that the director was kidnapped, and even his wife, who might have believed their nonsense, would look and see. But now I see that they are lying. They have hatred within them. They are intellectually constipated. That's why they are forced to lie, because surely they have made, you know, a pact with the imperialists, and they are obliged to work to make them believe. They are crooks, actually. Otherwise, we are here, we continue to work, we are with you every morning, we pass by, there you go. But we didn't want to come to let them continue until they drown themselves. I think they have indeed drowned now. All of Africa has understood that. They are stateless, they are enemies of the nation. There you go, if there's a year, absolutely nothing. We are here, we are working.
Mr. President, what is your assessment of how this incident was handled by the media, especially the Western media?
Western media, it's nothing new, you know? And it fits well. You are journalists, you work in information. Do you see what we call the lying media? I think many have understood now. They spend their time lying, manipulating. And today, when I watch them, in their reports and everything they say, it's shameful. And that's very good. They even managed to prove to all of Africa, to the whole world, that they are liars. And that's good. I think the African youth must have understood. The Burkinabe youth must have understood. Unsubscribe from those people. Stop listening to them, because they have manipulated us all for a long time. There you go. You have several examples at home, right? Take Ivory Coast, who didn't hate Gbagbo. In any case, us, our generation. They lied so much about him. They talked nonsense. They put pressure through information. You end up hating the person. They create a model of the person to impose that on your mind. You end up hating the person. They take him to the ICC. Then they say he's nothing. He's guilty of nothing. Is that serious? Gaddafi. We let Gaddafi die. Here are the consequences. Dictator, he did this, he did that, according to their organizations. They lie. RFI, whatever. I don't know what. France 24, Le Monde, Jeune Africa. They are obliged to do the work they are asked to do. There you go. They are not free, actually. There are many media outlets there. It's not, they don't live off advertising or whatever, you know. It's false. There are people who pay, and you provide the information as they want. There you go. Even unfortunately here, there are some, you know, in Burkina, there are some. There are plenty. There you go. When we often say it, people say we're attacking journalists, but there are some. I think you have to choose between earning your living, but also loving your country, actually. It's true. They fight for their country, you know. Everything they do is to the advantage of their country, but we need to move away from that. And we see national media that take these media as a reference. Often we look at certain newspapers, they quote, according to such and such a newspaper, they are liars. They have no information, they have nothing. The reporters are liars because when they want to attack a country, they paint the country as they wish. They say what they want about the country to make everyone hate it and to push through what they want. But I think this time we have understood. It's a game of chess. Let's go. We'll see what happens. Here, you need to distance yourself from those media outlets.
Hello, Your Excellency. Regarding the shooting incident, some sources have indicated that there were movements of planes and helicopters in Ouagadougou and Duri. What explained these observed movements of helicopters and planes?
It was said that we fled by helicopter to go to Duri. And when you see grown-ups lying, it's pitiful. In reality, it was on Wednesday, it was the day after the Mansilla attack. We launched an operation in Mansilla. And so the helicopters were sending troops as reinforcements again. That's just it. So they took off and went to Duri to pick up some personnel. There were hygiene elements that they took here in Ouagadougou to go for the operation at the level of Mansilla. So we also learned it like that. It's true. You see, they have a tactic. As I said, the few neurons they have left, that they exploit them to do something plausible. They always take a true piece of information. And around it now, they build their big lie. If you are not vigilant, you will believe it's true. The helicopters really flew over. It's true. That's a fact. Everyone observed it. So, but why did they fly over? That's the question. So they built the big lie around that. Everyone saw the helicopters fly over, but they used that to say that, look, we did. No, it's false. It's the same tactic they used when the helicopters, the Ilyushins, landed in Ouagadougou. There were 6 Ilyushin flights to Ouagadougou. It's true. The Ilyushins landed, but they take that. And when I look at them, they lie as easily as they breathe. They build something big around it, but that it's what? Wagner and Malian soldiers who came. I wouldn't say Malian soldiers, they're AES soldiers, but they are Malian soldiers from the free generation who can come to Burkina whenever they want, however they want. But it's false. It's completely false. The Russians are already here. They are working together, they are here. Why would we bring them again? Oh, well, it's because they couldn't help us do what we want. That doesn't mean anything. Secondly, I can assure you, these planes, for example, that landed, the helicopters, as I explained to you, the planes are United Nations equipment. After the mission ended, the ammunition remained in Gao, now, in Bamako, a bit everywhere. It was the boat from Timbuktu that had started taking our ammunition to evacuate to Bamako. They destroyed that boat. So we found other ways to send it there. And there it's ammunition that we collected to bring here. There is even ammunition from other countries that we are going to destroy here. There is a United Nations structure, which is UNMAS, that is aware of the operation and is supposed to supervise this operation over these 2 days. It's ammunition, therefore, from the mission that we collected. In Gao, we had an FPI. And in Timbuktu, we had our men. Now, the ammunition was in Bamako, that's all. But this persistence should make you understand that there is something strange going on. So it's false. The mood swing, it's false. Nothing happened. And it led to the fact that yesterday or the day before, the general staff was forced to communicate. But we didn't even want them to communicate. And it's because the parents of the soldiers in Dauri started calling them. We heard that it's you who want to mutiny or what? The children say they are even on a mission. 2 are near Manzila, 2 are near Bani, on a mission. And the parents were bothering them a lot. So they asked if the general staff could really communicate so that they would stop bothering them and let them focus on their operations. Do you see what they're doing? It's not good. Otherwise, there's nothing, absolutely nothing. It's their wish, maybe. It's their wish, but they won't see it come true. No, it's an insult to our soldiers. Our soldiers are much smarter than them. They know what they're doing. They know where the country is. They know where we're heading.
Excellence, in certain circles, there was even talk of a power vacation, and that within the army, there would be negotiations to appoint your successor. Have you been informed of these so-called negotiations?
If it's vacant, let them come and take it. He felt me, since they said we had to go to Niger, right? They just have to come and take it. What were they doing over there? They just have to come themselves and take it. They didn't understand anything, actually. But understand them. If they were paid and didn't achieve their goal, they have to lie to justify what they're doing. And it's not just them. You see the Jibrils, Basole, and others, they wander around the world. They lie. They collaborate with terrorists to kill Burkinabés, thinking they can change things. That's over. People have understood. So maybe tell them if it's vacant, they just have to come. They come to take. These people have nothing. They have no children. They have nothing in the army. And it's you who sit over there, trying to manipulate other people's children, hoping to do what you want. Are they smart? That's an insult. It's an insult even to the Burkinabe people, to treat them like children, telling nonsense and believing that people will swallow it. No, people are smart. It's no longer the years when people can see information like that and then jump on it and everything. But remember that they have several objectives. It's chaos. It's, you see, destabilizing Burkina because our course of action doesn't please them. And that reassures us. It reassures us. It makes us want to move towards the goal we have set for ourselves. So don't worry about that, actually.
A lot of information has come out, as you said. What is your message to the Burkinabe people inside the country, and especially to the diaspora who have many questions about the progress of the transition?
People will understand. Here we are. Maybe they'll say it's fake too. Come shake my hand. Maybe they'll believe that. You see, at least that's not fake. It's something I love. Something I love. They are the ones with all the technology. We haven't reached that level yet. We are free in our country, and people shouldn't worry. I was saying that they have many objectives. One of the objectives, Monsieur, is to scare investors by saying that Burkina is unstable. Burkina cannot. You know that since 2023, Burkina has been among the 10 most attractive countries in Africa. Investors want to come to Burkina because they see vision. They see that this country can develop with what we are undertaking. So there are many people who visit us, who come to invest in Burkina. And when they do that, it scares the investors. That's their goal. So to tell those Burkinabe abroad and other investors who want to come to Burkina, what they are saying is completely false. Burkina is very stable. They can come. They can trust in Burkina. And all those who are abroad, all those lying media, they are telling stories. There you go. That's one of their objectives. They have a plan in mind, that's for sure. But we are also aware. We are ready for them. There you go. Maybe the next phase is to say, watch TV. Be careful. It's not out of the question that the next plan is for them to try
Okay,
to hack a
so
number of.
I wanted to share that bit right there with you to kind of show you, an example of some of the ground level discussions that the president of Burkina Faso has had with his people. Very straightforward. You see, he doesn't beat around the bush. He just gives the details that he can give, and moves on. But one of the things that even he's pointed out over multiple times is the lying nature of his opponents. They have to rely upon their lies. They have to rely upon their deceptions in order to try to make any gains. I think that, as I said, reflecting upon a scholarly perspective in support of Ibrahim Traore, the leader of Burkina Faso, is crucial in an era where misinformation and deception proliferate for several key reasons. I think that we have to be in a time. Okay, think of it this way: there were, as of late, 20 attempts at the life of Ibrahim Traore. Right now, imagine that our minds are also being. There are also assassination attempts against our minds to manipulate us, so that way, as Malcolm X would put it in words, that we would end up turning against those who would be in our favor. You understand? We would end up turning against them. If they encouraged us to turn against them, we would turn against them. I wish I had the exact quote, but I'm sure you can Google that because it's a very popular Malcolm X quote. And this is just one example of how they try to do that. They try hard to get us to be against our own, even when we stand up, for a reasonable cause, right? We have to have a intelligent approach at this to protect our own thinking process. Have you ever been in a situation where you hear somebody say something and they mention your name, and then they start saying something about you or about something they heard of you, and you hear this and it's not accurate information, right? Think about how you feel when you're hearing this. One, you might have a sense of confidence knowing that, well, what they're saying isn't true, is not accurate, because the facts are quite different. That's the thing about misinformation, is that it works just like that. People will say and speak misinformation. The hope is that they will catch the attention of at least some, enough to stir confusion amongst the many, right? Because think of it this way: many people that show up to a situation or participate in a situation, like let's say going to like a ceremony or going to a convention, most of the people are there as participants, not observing participants, not as being directly involved. They're there to observe and have it in their heart that they're a part of what's going on. But a smaller group of people from out of that group are actually aware of what's going on and aware of what tasks they must do. You understand? So their participation is actually functional. And then you have an even smaller group that's more intimately aware of the facts on the ground. You understand? So the further away you get from those facts, the more vague things tend to get. And it's there where the enemy likes to manipulate in hopes of sponsoring someone from amongst that rank to get further in, to get closer, so as to cause chaos among the ranks and have you scattered and forsaken each other. You understand? Forsaken the cause, forsaken the leadership of the cause. You know that story, right? So Burkina Faso, like many nations, having a complex, even having a complex social political landscape, having a closer look, an analyzing look at the leadership of Ibrahim Traore through a scholarly lens, that means an intellectual lens, allows for a nuanced understanding of the economic, social, and historical facts influencing the country. Having this kind of knowledge, I would encourage you to study the history of Burkina Faso, get to know Burkina Faso a bit better before even colonization, if you can. What was life in Burkina Faso like before there was ever any colonization? And even put, some imagination on the table. What could Burkina Faso be like once colonization, once any type of the poisons of Western influence is eradicated from the country? What could the country become? What could happen what would be the new Burkina Faso, the external country influence free Burkina Faso? What would that be like? That's what I tend to think about. Like, you know, I often wonder. In fact, I had one question one time that I asked somebody. I said, imagine that Africa, in this case Burkina Faso, and many West African countries, imagine they were never colonized and allowed to grow and push forward in their development throughout the ages. What would Africa look like today? What would it be like today? What kind of technology would you have today? What kind of political positions would you have today? What kind of unity would you have today? Would there be any unity? Would there be any uh, uh, advanced development? What kind of Africa would you have today if there was not any colonization? Me, I believe, based upon things that I've learned regarding the actual history of Africa, as opposed to the story that's been handed to us by Western, manipulators, that we would be by far much further than we are today in the world, not just in Africa, but in the world itself. The world will be further advanced. If you're looking at what advancement China has and whatnot in like robo technology and whatnot, I think we would even be further than that. And a critical component being our spiritual attunement would have been intact in whatever we did, in whatever endeavor we embarked upon, in whatever inventions we would manifest. That there would be more reflection of our soul in what we do, just as it is when we do things on a ground level. When you see brothers and sisters working hard to bring about results, you can feel the passion that they have. When you watch them act, you can feel the passion that they have in their craft. You understand? So I often wonder that. So I wanted to share something with you today. I was talking to you sometime these past lives about the scholar by the name of Shahid Bolzan. And it just so happened that yesterday he had something to say about none other than Ibrahim Traore, right? And I was like, I said, well, interesting timing, interesting timing, right? So I wanted to share what he had to say. You understand? I want to try to share it in its whole without cutting or interrupting, and I'll try to comment, after I present the footage. The YouTube channel that he uses, or the channel that's showing his presentations, is called Middle Nation, right? So I want to share that with you because he has some pretty interesting things from a scholarly perspective. That is, when I'm saying scholarly, that means an educated perspective, to say about Ibrahim Traore. Another person you probably want to tap into when it comes to a scholarly, educated perspective is the brother Lumumba. I was trying to pronounce his name right, Lumumba, who's been adamant about his support of what's going on in Africa. So let me see if I can set this up so you can see this clearly. And I want to make sure the sound is right. Make sure the sound is right. So this is his take on what's been going on with Ibrahim Traore. The take of Shahid Bolzan.
People talk about a Patrice Lumumba or a Kwame Nkrumah, for example, or Thomas Sankara, or even Sukarno. They always say that they were ahead of their time, but that's not true. They weren't ahead of their time. They were not revolutionary thinkers, if you know what I mean. They were just incredibly astute, mature, sensible men with a very crystal clear understanding about how things should be. There was nothing futuristic or utopian in their visions. They just understood and identified exactly what had been done to Africa and what was being done to Africa. And they understood exactly what liberation and what sovereignty required. You know, if they had been leaders in the West, no one would have called them revolutionary or even visionary. They just would have been regarded as logical, sound, rational, reasonable men who had an intricate understanding of economics and politics and basic fairness. I'm not saying this to slight them, not at all. I'm saying this to emphasize the heinous criminality of the Western power structure and how it has dealt with Africa. Because if you were a leader in Africa in the 1950s, the 1960s, the 70s, or the 80s, and you had a sound mind, a rational mind, you had an understanding of politics and economics, and you had an understanding of what's required for sovereignty and fairness, well, that made you a revolutionary, calling for pursuing basic fairness and sovereignty and independence for an African leader, saying things and doing things and implementing policies that just made sense for your nation, constituted rebellion. No, they weren't ahead of their time. Time refused to advance. Time was being held back, especially in Africa. The West, Europe, the UK, and America refused to allow Africa to exist in the present day. Not just Africa, of course, all across the global South. But nowhere was this more the case than in Africa. You understand? I pointed out before, more than once, relationships between countries, between continents, evolve and develop and change over time. We've seen drastic changes in international relationships in just the last 20 years. In fact, we've seen drastic changes in just the last 4 or 5 years. You know, even the last 100 days, to be honest. But the West's relationship with Africa has remained essentially the same for 1,000 years. Subjugation and extraction, looting and pillage. So for Lumumba or Nkrumah, it was the 1960s, but for the West, it was still the 1860s, the 1760s, the 1660s. For the West, Africa was frozen in time, and they kept it frozen in time by force. They kept it frozen in time by violence, by assassination, by coups, by invasions, and by hostage governments and collaborators. They kept it frozen in time by predatory lending, by neoliberal policy coercion, by manufactured debt and abusive trade policies. You know, when they can't send soldiers, they send consultants. So no, those great leaders weren't ahead of their time. The West stopped time in Africa. And understand this, when you arrest the forward movement of a people, When you stop them in time like that, you're not just stealing their wealth, you're stealing their future. You're robbing them of possibility. You're burying generations that have not even been born yet under the rubble of your exploitation. Because what could have been created, what could have been discovered, what could have been achieved, it never gets a chance to exist. The mind of Thomas Sankara, the determination of Patrice Lumumba, the vision of Nkrumah, these weren't anomalies. They're the normal, natural, healthy state of a decolonized mind, of a liberated mind coming from a liberated people. They're examples of what Africa would have been, should have been, and inshallah, bi'idhnillah, still will be. But the West systematically crushed the conditions necessary even for normalcy to flourish. You see, you don't just kill the leaders when you kill the leaders or when you overthrow the leaders. You steal the future that those leaders could build. You know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran that when you kill one person unjustly, it's as if you killed all of mankind. Well, that isn't just metaphorically true. In the case of the leaders that the West has destroyed in Africa, they also destroyed millions of lives along with them. Millions of living and unborn lives have been destroyed in terms of their hopes, their opportunities, their rights, their freedom, their independence, their sovereignty. Well, you can trace the carnage going on right now in Congo today, all the way back to the assassination of Patrice Lumumba. They assassinate the idea. They assassinate the man who represents the idea so that future generations will look back and go, well, you know, they tried and they failed, so we better not bother. It's psychological warfare across time. Because if you can make a people believe that liberation is impossible, if you can make them believe that wanting sovereignty is naive and that dignity is an unrealistic hope, then you don't even have to conquer them anymore. They'll remain conquered inside themselves. And please understand, when we talk about people like Sankara, Nkrumah, Lumumba, Sukarno, we're actually just talking about the natural state of a decolonized mind. We're not talking about something extraordinary. We're talking about what's supposed to be normal, not exceptional, normal. They didn't have utopian visions for their countries. Like I said, they wanted their countries to be normal, but the West would not allow it. And back then, the West had the power to prevent it. The relative power, that's the key point. They had the relative power to prevent it. They had the relative power to steal Africa's future by prolonging its past by force. But as I've talked about many times, the West's relative power is receding. That old wolf still has fangs, but the global South is raising some young lions of their own today. They're reviving the spirit of Lumumba and Sankara and Nkrumah. Your grip on Africa is being pried open. And yes, of course, I'm talking about Ibrahim Traore in Burkina Faso. And all the leaders in the Sahel Alliance countries, obviously, but especially Ibrahim Traore. You know, it's often only in retrospect that we recognize the magnitude of a figure who shifts the course of history. It shifts the course of events in the world. But if anyone's paying attention, you can all see that Ibrahim Traore is clearly one of the most consequential leaders, not just in Africa, not just in the Muslim world, but in the entire global South and in fact, in the world. You know, I said on X the other day that Ibrahim Traore is the most important Muslim leader in the world today, more than Erdogan, more than MBS, more than anyone else, because of what he represents. You know, of course, I had a lot of fake Pan-Africanists in my comment section getting mad about the fact that I was referring to Ibrahim Traore as a Muslim leader, because they only want to identify him exclusively as a black leader or as exclusively as an African leader. They don't want to acknowledge the fact that he is a Muslim, because in their CIA-produced Pan-Africanism, they're ready to exclude 500 million Africans from Africa. They're so propagandized in their mind by the CIA and by the intelligence that they think being African and being Muslim is a contradiction. They've fallen for the old divide and rule tactics of the colonizers. Their indoctrinated brains will short circuit over the inconvenient fact that the most admired and the most heroic leaders in Africa today are Muslims. In Burkina Faso, in Niger, in Senegal, even Naledi Pandor in South Africa is a Muslim, taking the Israel to the ICJ. Just because Ibrahim Traore doesn't wear his religion on his sleeve, and just because he doesn't takwa signal, all the time like some so-called Islamists, you think we don't get to claim him as part of our ummah? We don't get to say that he's a Muslim leader, but he is a Muslim leader. He's an African leader who's a Muslim. And I'm sorry to tell you, but again, the fact of the matter is that the best leaders you have in Africa today are the ones who are Muslims. You can get mad about it all you want. You can say, why does Shaheed have to bring up religion? Why do you have to bring religion into it? But that's just a way of gaslighting about the fact that you don't want religion to be brought into it. You want to keep religion out of it. No, Ibrahim Traore is fighting those Western-backed, Western-trained, Western-funded jihadi groups because he's a Muslim. Nobody has suffered more from those mercenaries than the Muslims have. Suffered more from their violence and suffered more from the warped image of Islam that spread by their violence. Now, when Ibrahim Traore stands up to those French and Ukrainian-backed psychopaths, he's standing up for real Islamic values, whether you like it or not. From the perspective of Middle Nation, from my perspective, from the prism through which we analyze the struggle for justice and sovereignty and dignity, Ibrahim Traore's emergence is nothing short of historic. I mean, alhamdulillah, we have many great Muslim leaders in the world today, despite what everyone says. We have great leaders, many. But in my opinion, Ibrahim Traore is the most important. Burkina Faso, the land they call it, the land of upright people, has again produced an upright man, not only for their country, not only for the Ummah, but for all of humanity. First, they gave us Thomas Sankara, who was a Catholic, but his life was extinguished before he could ever reach the full, before he could realize his vision. But today, in Ibrahim Traore, we see that vision revived and refined and aligned with the consciousness of Islam. We don't have any hesitation acknowledging Thomas Sankara. We're proud of anyone, regardless of their faith, who stands for justice. There were many leaders, heroic leaders in the global South, particularly in Latin America, who were inspired by the so-called liberation theology within the Catholic Church. Even if their own church hated them for it, we salute them. Even those with no faith, who genuinely struggle for the rights of their people, we salute them. It's a part of our faith, it's a part of our religion to appreciate those who genuinely stand for justice, even if we know that their vision is never going to be complete without Islam. So if you want to be proud of Ibrahim Traore because of just his skin color, go ahead. If you want to be proud of him because of his country or his continent of origin, go ahead. But we're proud of him because of his belief. He's our brother in belief. We're proud of him because of his faith. And anyone who wants to deny that or deny us that, well, you're just petty and foolish and ideologically shackled. Ibrahim Traore led a coup against a government that was subservient to its foreign masters. There's been many, many coups across the continent, but usually those just replaced one neo-colonial agent with another, usually. But Ibrahim Traore is different. He's not just changing the government. He is uprooting the whole system of neo-colonial domination, and he's succeeding. He's understood what many people have failed to grasp, which is that independence is meaningless if you don't sever the control of the owners and controllers of global financialized capital. He's understood that security is a myth as long as it depends on the military patronage of your former colonizers. And he's understood that sovereignty is impossible under the shadow of Western tutelage. He's not merely a head of state. Ibrahim Traore is the revolutionary archetype of the 21st century. He was forged in the reality of Western-backed insurgency and Western economic warfare and propaganda. Because, today the fight for freedom is not just waged by armies anymore, but by narratives and by resource policies and by alliances and by collective sovereignty. Traore has made the choice to look towards Russia and Turkey and towards other new centers of power in the multipolar world. That's strategic, not because they're perfect allies, but because he recognizes the necessity of breaking the Western stranglehold on Burkina Faso. This is pragmatism in service to principle. This, again, is the methodology of Middle Nation. It's engagement without submission, cooperation without subjugation. It's trade-offs without selling out. He also understands, crucially, that Africa's liberation cannot be rented from outside. It has to be rooted in the reclamation of Africa's own wealth. his moves to exert control over Burkina Faso's gold, building indigenous defense capacity and food sovereignty, these aren't just political decisions. These are acts of civilizational self-respect. It's a declaration that Africa's children will no longer be bled dry for the enrichment of Western imperial capital. We see Ibrahim Traore as a brother, not simply because of his faith, but also because of his fight, because he embodies the spirit of the Quranic guidance to stand firmly for justice, even if it is against your own selves, even if it is against those who are in power, and even if it is against the odds. Burkina Faso isn't just a battleground today for the Burkinabe people. It's the front line in a global struggle for liberation. What Ibrahim Traore is doing is echoing in the Sahel, in Niger, in Mali, across Africa, across the Ummah, across the global South, and across the world. Every oppressed people around the world can now look to Burkina Faso and to Ibrahim Traore and say liberation looks like it's actually possible. But obviously, the global order trembles at the prospect that anyone is going to follow his example. They're afraid of his courage and his clarity and his defiance in the face of Western power and Western threats. And they should be afraid of that. They should tremble because they know the jig is up. But we know that when they get scared, they get dangerous. And Ibrahim Traore is under severe threat. There's already been something like 20 attempts on his life since coming to power. They just stopped a coup from happening last week, organized by the Americans and by the French, right there in the French embassy. Because a free Africa is just something that that old wolf can't take. You know, they've been keeping Africa in the past for so long that they know that if they let Africa get away from them, then they're going to be the ones who are consigned to history. The chains that have been holding Africa down all this time are also the only things holding the West up. So now America has said that they want to arrest him. You know, they've already tried to take him out more than once, like I said. Now they're trying to smear him. They're trying to attack him. They sent the head of AFRICOM to the Ivory Coast a couple of days ago, which is a neighbor of Burkina Faso and which is known to have allegedly, anyway, participated in the killing of Thomas Sankara. Allegedly, they participated in the coups or helped to organize the coups against coup attempts against Ibrahim Traore. And the Western sycophantic leader that was overthrown by Ibrahim Traore is in exile in the Ivory Coast right now. So they're getting ready for something. Understand, Ibrahim Traore isn't just fighting insurgents and militants in the desert. No, every time he has to meet with some Western diplomat or politician or ambassador, he's fighting that same enemy. They're just wearing a suit and tie and meeting in some conference room or some embassy somewhere. But it's the same enemy that he's fighting in the desert. He doesn't have a meeting with any Western official except it's a kind of combat. Imagine the same ones that are smiling at you or from across the table. Those are the same ones who are also paying mercenaries to kill you. That's why there's going to be a continent-wide protest at the end of this month. I think it's on the 30th. And I really hope that we'll see activists fill the streets all around the world, not just in Africa. It's a demonstration in support of Ibrahim Traore, in support of Burkina Faso, and it's a protest against American and Western threats against him. And I really hope, wallahi, that we see massive numbers globally participating in this. Wallahi, I hope that even we'll see people of the Ivory Coast turn out for it. Listen, this is important. Burkina Faso is important. Ibrahim Traore is important for everyone, not just for Africans, not just for the Burkinabes. This isn't about idolizing the man. It's about understanding the importance of what he represents. And what he represents is a paradigmatic shift that the whole world needs. You understand me? The OCGFC have been on a path of power consolidation for decades, accumulating more and more power in fewer and fewer hands and leaving almost nothing beyond their control. We are in a struggle against this consolidation. Do you understand? It's a struggle for decentralization. That's the essence of it. That's what multipolarity is. It's decentralization. We need to pursue, protect, and preserve variance. They don't want there to be any options. They don't want there to be any divergence, any independence. But see, they built their power structure initially on the assumption that American power would last forever. Now they're understanding that they have to recalibrate. They need to transition. It's like they built one of those Jenga towers on a kitchen table, and now they have to relocate it. They have to move that tower all the way across town without it falling apart. Because now you have to move to the global south. It's a completely different terrain than what they're used to. So they're going to try to eliminate as many variables as they can to try to manage this transition so they come out on the top, because they don't want their tower to fall apart. But if their tower falls apart, that is liberatory for everyone on this planet. Burkina Faso, as I say, represents decentralization. It represents variance. It represents a threat to the power consolidation. They see Ibrahim Traore as a glitch in their system, but their system is a virus on humanity. Burkina Faso represents not only the promise of African liberation, but liberation for all of us. And the instinct for liberation is not a bug in the human software, it's a feature. So everyone should do whatever they can, and we should all do all we can to try to defend and protect Ibrahim Traore. Because wallahi, this is a matter of self-defense. Ibrahim Traore isn't simply a political figure. He's a turning point.
Okay, so I hope that you were able to hear that pretty good without any too much difficulty, and that everything was clear. Okay, so a lot of strong points were put forth, a lot of things to really reflect upon on a much more broader scale. I know sometimes when we identify with a cause, sometimes we risk falling into the trap of being narrow-minded and limited to only our scope in that cause, and not realize how many other factors are at play. You understand? How many other groups of people find that they have a part to play in that cause, and their perspectives might be slightly different than yours when it comes to what the cause of Ibrahim Traore in Burkina Faso means to them. My advice is always in that case to find out where you are all in agreement and build from that point. You understand? So that way, the things where you are in disagreement, you can kind of put out there and build over in the course of time. It's just a matter of fact that Ibrahim Traore is carrying a very heavy burden, a very heavy mantle, you understand, in Burkina Faso. This is no simple task, but it is a task that he cannot be allowed to fail. It is a task that we should strive hard to not allow the enemy to cause him to fail. So even this event, for the 30th of April, it should be of such a quality, of such potency, right, that without any doubt, this cause is a cause to be reckoned with. And that whatever position that this Western and American enemy might take, they should be mindful that the whole world is watching, and that a significant number of people, more than that even you and I can understand, are standing with Ibrahim Traore. Enough voices to make it clear that, one, you should leave Ibrahim Traore alone, and that you should allow the manifestation of self-determination to take effect in Burkina Faso and abroad. That your time is up. You understand? Your time for manifesting your tyranny across the world is up. The time that it's taken you to do this, other countries, other nations have wisened up. They've become stronger. They become better informed of how to recognize your acts of deception and manipulation, how to even better to defend themselves. Countries that years ago may have not have had any way to challenge you. Today you find them challenging you boldly and not afraid, not showing any signs of breaking a sweat. You understand? Letting you know that whatever you want to do, they are prepared to take on the challenge, whatever that may mean. This is a different age. You understand? This is a different time. And in the matter that pertains to the Africans in the diaspora in general, and really the world as a whole, because here's the thing, a stronger Africa is a stronger world. An Africa that's allowed to breathe again, that's allowed to be resurrected. Because if you really think about it, Africa as a whole has been beaten down and suppressed in so many ways where you find pockets of strong development, strong uh, uprising of vibrant cities and whatnot. But the repression that I'm talking about is, where we find ourselves always needing to impress the West or look for their permission or approval to be who we are. You understand? Looking for them to trying to behave in a way where uh, we don't feel that we have a reason to be ashamed of who we are. We've got to find validation through Western perspectives. Those days are done. Those days are over with, and it should have been over with all along. But this was a learning experience that many of us had to go through, and some are still going through it. Some are still fighting this myth that white is right. You understand? And what I'm talking about, white is right, I'm meaning that many of us have been misled in putting these people on pedestals instead of walking on a common terrain. You understand? Looking at each other as from eye to eye as a human being. You understand? Not as you are inferior and they are gods. But no, we're walking on the same surface of the earth. You're going to respect me, not because I'm asking you to, but because I have the right to be respected, just as you desire to be respected. That's what's being said. We will determine our course of action, not because you're giving us permission to, but because this is our human right. Respect, brother Ibrahim Traore, because the people of Burkina Faso who recognize his authority, who recognize his leadership, they insist upon it. They insist that you respect. And the people who are observing what's going on in Burkina Faso, who are standing in support of Burkina Faso and its leadership, Ibrahim Traore, they insist upon it. It's critical that we pay attention, that we navigate this journey wisely together. It's also crucial even, for leaders like him, like Ibrahim Traore, not to falter, not to fall victim to harm or be hindered for multiple deep resonating reasons. You understand? It's it's critical that we do our part to be extended eyes and ears for the people of Burkina Faso and for its leadership, paying attention to detail, paying attention to any forms of shenanigans, any forms of deceit, any forms of underhandedness. You understand? As even Shahid had pointed out, and others have pointed out throughout these past days, there was an American presence in the Ivory Coast. For what purpose? And this is the same area where there have been some issues associated with some of the unaliving attempts of the life of Ibrahim Traore. So clearly there's something going on there. And, you know, the usual tactic is trying to rear its ugly head in that location. You got to pay attention and make sure that nothing happens. Make sure that this brother succeeds in his objective. It, you know, one of the claims against Ibrahim Traore by a military personnel from the States was that he was using the gold for his own personal interests, you know, for his own security and whatnot, which hasn't been proven to be the case. But if you think about the fact that there is a need for security, there is a need for the brother to be concerned about his safety. You understand? It would make sense. Agreements have been made between, you know, the Burkina Faso leadership and Russia, for example. And it again, when you're trying to think with reason, when you're looking at the alternative, if this was the only other option you have that would help you in securing your country, securing the path that you're trying to chart for your country, then and this is the best option that you have, then it makes sense that that's the option you take. In that type of thing, you know that when you build kinds of alliances like that, there has to be agreements. There's a give and take. You're not going to shake hands with a friend without there being a mutual interest between the two of you that makes you friends in the first place, that makes you alliances in the first place. You have these agreements. So think of it in a sense of, let's say there were, and there is an agreement that's been made with a Russian-based company. Okay. Agreements have also been made to provide security, to help with the security situation in the country, to make sure that the administration of Ibrahim Traore doesn't come under attack or doesn't find itself threatened for any reason. Remember, 20 attempts already. You don't want 21 or 22 to be the one that gets the job done. You really want to stop it right where it's at and make sure that the brother succeeds. Make sure that the leadership, Ibrahim Traore, succeeds. Everybody is watching. Everybody that this matters to is watching. So, firstly, stability of Burkina Faso highly hinges on its leadership. Think of it this way. Look at the momentum that's going on in Burkina Faso now and abroad, all across the motherland of Africa and overseas. Now imagine that suddenly something unfortunate were to happen to Ibrahim Traore. That would be a major blow specifically to the people of Burkina Faso. And it would be an emotional impact, an emotional injury as well, that will cause a lot of pain. It would be hard to bounce back from something like that. It would take a lot of heart, because that's like you have this great momentum, a passion that you finally see the light of self-determination right in your grasp, right in your reach, only for it to be taken away harshly. That's not something easy to recover from. So with that said, it's only one further example of why Ibrahim Traore cannot fail in this journey. Indeed, Africa has to stand in unity as one people. You have to find your place in this April 30th expression of unity. And not just on that date, but even after that, every day should be just like that, the April 30th, some form or fashion in some way. So in a land where changes have often been, unpredictable, to say, for lack of better words, a leader is perceived as a beacon of hope. People that are observing Ibrahim Traore, they see, like the Shahi said, it's not about idolizing him, but you see an example of hope. You see what could become. You know, a beautiful, vibrant Burkina Faso can equate to, very quickly, a beautiful and vibrant Africa. A beautiful and vibrant Africa can become a shining light all across the globe. You understand? Especially in the face of a tyrant who's done nothing but find ways to pollute, corrupt, distort, destroy, murder, shed blood all across the globe. If Traore were to be undermined or harmed, it could incite further uncertainty and unrest and further suffering among the people, disrupting any progress towards peace and self-determination. It would be like a void that draws everything in, all kinds of all hope, all everything would go in, and it would spread like wildfire. It would be like shooting Africa in the heart. You understand? Because who would have the motivation to stand up in the way that Ibrahim Traore is standing up today? Who would have the same grade of motivation? We've heard all kinds of strong rhetoric from many of the politicians in Africa, many of the leadership in Africa, lots of strong rhetoric, but you haven't seen anyone stand up in the same, with the same influence as what you find being demonstrated today through the brother Ibrahim Traore. You understand? And this, is to say a lot, especially when you understand that both Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, formed a very strong alliance. But all this represents that same drive, that same motivated factor. You understand? A momentum that we can't let die out toward peace and self-determination. Secondly, his success is key. His, being Ibrahim Traore's success, is key to the narrative of self-governance and sovereignty, not only in Burkina Faso, but across Africa. We begin, think of it this way, a strong Burkina Faso means a strong Burkina Faso history. We're able to, a strong education system, a strong the institutions for learning and studying and progress and development and economy, you name it, strong, because nothing hindering them at that point. You understand? Imagine the technology that could come out of that, technology that doesn't exist because the hearts and minds that would produce it, have been restricted up until this point. Now imagine those chains, those colonial chains, broken and disposed of, and now replaced with empowerment, inspiration, and motivation. Imagine the students that come out of that. Imagine what you would get. Imagine the recipe that you will get from that. Ibrahim Traore must succeed, because then we get to hear our story again. We get to be reminded of our roots, and our roots growing up into the tree that they become and all the branches that they become. We get to see and experience that again, unfettered, untainted, uncorrupted. Many African nations are observing closely as Burkina Faso's journey could set a precedent for others seeking a similar path of real sovereignty away from lingering neo-colonial influences. Shout out to Ghana, who insists that any gold, you understand, is going through, the rules of their country. You understand? Going through the processes of their country. Where did they get that motivation from? And imagine neighboring countries like, we see what you did there, Ghana. If you can do that, perhaps we can do it too, because we see that you did that and you still live to speak about it. You're still standing to speak about it. So maybe I can do it too and stand up just like you. That's what these other countries, that's the influence that Burkina Faso is able to shine like a light across the motherland of Africa and abroad. Imagine the effect on the brothers and sisters, of America, the so-called African Americans, the so-called Blacks, seeing this, seeing their brothers and sisters overseas in the motherland finally standing up in sovereign countries, unified together, working together, importing, exporting together, breaking bread together. And we've been longing, those of us brought up in America have been longing for self-determination. You understand? To be restored as a people again, an identity again, a nationhood again. You understand? Seeing that, becoming inspired, we see our brothers and sisters abroad standing up. We need to take this as the hint that's been passed down to stand up too, because we are people too. You understand? Much has been stripped from us. Much has been hidden from us. Much has been distorted upon our minds. Shake it all off. Wash it all off. Spiritual ablution, a full, whole-scale ablution, cleansing us enough to get the filth off, but not too much to where we forget our experiences. We don't want to forget our experiences because we don't want to repeat this again. We don't want to fall into the same tragic history again. Failure, that is in failure to reach this objective, to reach the success in Burkina Faso. Failure could discourage, discourage the movements, whereas success could inspire a continent-wide resurgence of self-determination and renewed calls for unity among African states and the diaspora. Even you hear the voices in South Africa, you hear the voices in Kenya, you hear the voices in Ghana and Nigeria, you hear the voices all across the land. Sierra Leone, you hear the voices of the people, you understand, letting you know that they're paying attention to what's going on and they want a piece of that pie. They want a piece of that pie of unity, that pie of self-determination. They want a piece of that pie of sovereignty, of true African sovereignty. Moreover, Traore's vision of including the diaspora in the African unity speaks to a broader, more inclusive understanding of what it means to be African. This inclusivity strengthens cultural, economic, and political ties, reinforcing a global network of support among people of African descent. Any setback in such a vision would not just be a local or national loss, but a global one, affecting millions who look towards Africa for leadership and solidarity in carving out a future that respects their heritage and their rights. A failure in this, to let this go, to let this die, to let this be defeated, it will touch each and every one of you wherever you are. If you're in the UK, if you're in America, if you're in Brazil, wherever you are, it will touch you. This, the enemy knows. If they can break the back of this movement, of this uprising, of this restoration of African sovereignty, they believe they will have killed the spirit in you to ever try again. Lastly, on a human scale, every leader who strives with genuine intent to uplift his or her nation carries the dreams and aspirations of many. If such a leader is hindered, it is not just a personal tragedy, but a communal one. I can't even speak. A communal one. That means a collective one. It is the stifling of hope for many who dare to dream of a better, fairer life. Can't let it happen. So it is definitely the prayer of many of us that, as I would say, that Allah protects us, that Allah guides leaders like Ibrahim Traore, imbuing them with wisdom, courage, strength needed to navigate the complex paths of leadership. May he and his people find peace, unity, and prosperity on their journey. Ameen. And may us supporters, those of us in Africa, those of us among the diaspora, find the strength, the courage, the wisdom, and motivation, furthering motivation to stand up and support and not give up and not turn our backs. Breaking the chains of the days that we submitted to this adversary, saying no more to that. As they say, never again, never again, never again. So, dear brothers and sisters, all those who have viewed this live, taking your time out to view this live, I know it's late for you right now. It's much, much later for me. But I pray that I was able to say something that adds to the energy of the cause, that adds to the motivation of the cause. And if you weren't aware of what's going on, that perhaps I said something that brought about an awareness, or gave you some useful information. That's the aim. And I think, as I always do in this type of situation, that we all have to play our part critically to the best of our ability. Whatever it is that you do it and do it well. Get the job done. Don't be lazy. Don't be late. Go 100%, 101%. Go in hard. And that's what we have to do. You understand? This is, clearly a door being opened that's a game changer. And I believe adamantly that Allah, God, helps those who helps themselves. That when we, as a people, you understand, wholeheartedly do our part, sincerely, that the extra lift, the extra boost that's needed to move forward, the Most High will provide. And you may be surprised. This is the thing about that even the enemy knows is possible, but they're not believing it's possible, because this is the nature of their devilry. That us all pulling together as a people, imagine something greater than what we even could imagine in our mind being produced out of that, being birthed out of that. You understand what I'm saying? Something much more magnificent than what we were even planning on or hoping for. Think about that. Think about a positive domino effect spreading across the globe, spreading across the motherland, because we insisted on standing up at the very time when we should have. And we didn't turn our backs. We didn't turn our backs. We didn't become cowards and flee. Like he said, we fight, or we live as slaves forever. Pick your side. Yeah, the battle lines are clearly drawn. Either you fight for your sovereignty, or you live as slaves forever. Pick your side. The last I checked, and this has been one of the things that have motivated me, especially when it comes to reuniting with the motherland, my ancestral lands of Africa, is knowing that my ancestors did not take this trip across the Atlantic willingly. It wasn't a vacation for them. And all through each step of the way, they fought and fought and fought. And I would ask people, I said, tell me one time where our ancestors You understand? Those who fought accepted anything other than the desire to return home. I'm talking about those who fought, not those who surrendered and cave in. I'm talking about those who fought. And understand that's the nature of war. When has a peace treaty been signed by any of us in America? When has any type of negotiation of any form where a ceasefire has been acknowledged occurred? At one point in history. So as it stands, the battle has never stopped. The war has never stopped. But perhaps at this point in time in our life, we have a chance to finally put this battle to an end. Finally gain the courage to stand up. Finally gain the courage to stand up on our own feet and put an end to this painful part of our story. Put an end to the sorrow that our ancestors, the sorrow and the tears that our ancestors cried, and replace it with a reason that our ancestors can smile about, knowing that their descendants didn't give up the fight. Imagine you're on your way out the door, dying at the hands of tyranny, dying as a martyr. Because a martyr is one who dies fighting, not giving up, not submitting to the enemy. Imagine they're dying and hoping that the seeds that they leave behind won't forget them, won't forget about why they died, won't forget about, the painful journey, won't forget about the battle. I'm trying to think of a more precise word, but that their descendants won't forget them. Many of us have forgotten. Many of us have no clue. Many of us have taken other kinds of bait, causing us to sever ties with our kinship, to sever ties with our ancestry. Some of us have taken that bait. Years we've been fighting for this, and then all of a sudden, in these past several decades, we start having other ideas and denying our ancestry, denying our family ties, our ancestral ties. Mind games. Remember the manipulation we were talking about? This is what they do. This is what they do. And we've fallen for it and fallen for it and fallen for it. We have to stop. We have to shake that off. You know they lie. Why believe the lie? You know they manipulate. Why believe the manipulation? In this way, if they speak, you know they're going to either lie or they're going to manipulate you with the truth. They're going to tell you the truth, but with an underhanded agenda. So what do you take from them? You take nothing from them. Leave them be. Leave them be. That was the wisdom of some of our ancestors. Let them alone. Don't take them into your home. The minute you take them into your home, that's when you've invited devilry into your home. Leave them be. When you leave them be, they will end up succumbing to their own wickedness. Right now, they're digging their own grave because the world is realizing that they don't need them. That most of what they are getting or benefiting from has been produced by the rest of the world. And the rest of the world can take the same productions and do business amongst themselves. They don't have to do business with the enemy. They don't have to even acknowledge their existence. Okay, you want to be great again? Then you be great over there and leave the rest of us alone. You be great over there, leave the rest of us alone. Just like that. We'll break bread amongst each other and enrich each other and rise up together as one people. You stay over there and be great by yourself. Be great in your own mirror. But when you look away from that mirror, you realize that you weren't that great in the first place. What time were you great? Were you great when you were a tyrant, enslaving people, taking them from their families? Was that when you were great? Were you great when you were bombing whole cities of developing African-American men and women who had established a thriving economy for themselves? Was that when you were great? Were you great when you were brutalizing innocent citizens, innocent children, innocent mothers with children, innocent fathers? Was that when you were great? At what time were you great? Because you say you want to be great again. At what time were you great? At what time were you great? Be great by yourself. If that, whatever that is, do it by yourself and leave the rest of the world in peace. I could guarantee you, the minute you would evacuate any of these locations, peace would restore almost instantly. The minute they wave goodbye at you, peace would be restored. Because in most cases, most of the drama that you find going on in the world is instigated by, So just another reason why it's important for Burkina Faso and its leadership to succeed, because it becomes a breakthrough from all of the madness. It becomes a breakthrough, some light in a dark world. It becomes some light in a dark world. So I hope I gave you, as the title implied, a focused perspective regarding the leadership of Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traore. And I hope that it was the type of perspective that's motivative. You know what I'm saying? We should be there for our people. We should be there for our family. We should be there for our land. You know what I'm saying? Bottom line. So I'm going to do one thing real quick, and if no one clicks this button, got a few minutes left because I like to try to close out at a certain time. There's a link in the chat to invite one or two of you, perhaps, to speak on this, because there are still questions that I put forth that I would like to hear an answer from or hear a response from. Namely, the question being, in our efforts to stand up in the defense of the leadership of Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traore, what are the people willing to do? What is the practical solution? There goes the light again. What is the practical solution? The practical objective, the realistic objective that's achievable, and making sure that one, he's protected, that the vision of Burkina Faso is protected. What are we willing to do? If you click that link, be mindful. This is a soul journey of life, and be mindful that you speak in a way that you would even approve for your children to hear. And I'll just, since the lights went out, I'll just do this with the camera. There we go. Be mindful of that. I want to say this. I want to ask you this also. Have you noticed these past years? Have you noticed the quality of and the quantity of of hearts and minds being upon unity in America, unity, self-determination, liberation, and in Africa, self-determination, a restoration of sovereignty. This has been building up momentum for the past years, and it hasn't stopped yet. It hasn't died out. There's been attempts to snuff out the fires of motivation, but as you can see, it hasn't succeeded. There's been attempts to woo us with all kinds of tricks and treats, You know, they make sure they can get a movie out to delude you or to you know, program your mind a certain way. But is it enough? Is there tactics of deception and trickery? Has it been enough? Or are the chains, are you able to break off those chains? Some of us still don't recognize that we're still in chains, psychological slave chains. But some of us, the minute that we recognize those chains, we break them off right away and never look back. Toss those chains down. We never look back. Never look back, brothers and sisters. I'll give us a few more minutes to click the link in that chat, and we'll see what you have to say about what we've been talking about. And otherwise, that'll be our presentation for this day. I'm going to show you a clip here that I was watching earlier. If you remember, the previous or the most recent Pope passed away. And, you know, there has been much discussion going on about his replacement. And a lot of hype, if you would, or a lot of talk has been about a particular cardinal. I think the cardinal, I think he's from Ghana. I know he's from Africa. I'm not sure what country exactly, but I think it's Ghana. There's a cardinal anyway that is one of the prospective candidates for becoming the next pope. And why is this so, something to talk on? Is because he's an African, and as you know, every pope in history has been European or been white. Now, one of the things that should be understood is how intricate the papacy institution is. How intricate, you know, the whole infrastructure of the papacy is. It's not as simple as meets the eye. There's so many elements there, Masonic elements, so many different components that come together for them to work and operate in the way that they do. The institution, if you would, of the Catholic religion is heavily on certain ingredients, certain signs, or certain uses or interpretation of signs. Some would even say that they do things in a certain way in order to produce signs or to express things to where they could say, well, this is the sign of this, or this is the sign of that. Even the names of the popes are said to have been symbolic and even prophetic. You understand? Now, this is, this is a matter that can be touchy because there are many people in the world who practice or who adhere to Catholicism, especially in Africa. Even there are, a significant populace that adheres to this. This is the same institution that actually authorized enslaving Africans. They actually had a papal bull that authorized, that legitimized the enslavement of Africans. It's the same institution that, once ashore of the West African borders and in other areas of Africa, perpetuated the hell that many Africans and their diaspora descendants had experienced for the past 400 or so years. So for many of us, The whole institution of Catholicism at the papacy level, to say the least, is suspect. You understand? I'm one of those people who, when I read like texts, like Quranic texts or biblical texts, um, I recognize that essentially much of this is of African origin, meaning the sources of the stories that you read about, and even some of the symbolic expressions that you read about are actually of older ancient African times. Some even ancient Kemet, aka Egyptian times, right? And out of these stories, you have um, narrations that talk about the enemy of Africa, so much that it gives the characteristic descriptions. The same enemy showing up in the Christian doctrine. You understand? The same enemy showing up even in the Quranic doctrine. Quranic doctrine refers to this enemy as Ad-Dajjal, Masih Ad-Dajjal. The Christian biblical doctrine refers to this enemy as Antichrist. And in ancient Kemet, some of the stories reference the one known as Set as having certain characteristics or behaviors and actions that are similar, right? So when you understand how the original Catholic Church was established in the first place, it leaves a lot to be, a lot of questions are there. You understand? A lot of missing pieces are there that have to be dealt with. And a lot of there are contexts that have uncanny resemblances to the events of certain times. One of the things that I was thinking about was the nature that this Antichrist had, being very much like the original or the real Christ, if you would, being like but speaking differently. You understand? Having all looking like even the number that represents him being like the number of the original human, but he speaks differently. He speaks the voice of a beast. So here you would see one like unto a lamb. The lamb is symbolic for an anointed or a holy one or a sacred authority or a sacred leader. While this other one is like that, is similar to that, but not speaking the same. So, or not speaking in the same way. You understand? Perhaps some undertones or some underhanded or twist of meanings where you sound as if your words are sincere and well-meaning and things like that, but you speak in favor of the enemies of the original humanity. While on the other side, in the case of an actual Christ would speak in favor of his people, in support of his people, in encouragement of the unification of his people. You understand? He wouldn't speak as an enemy to his own people. And he definitely wouldn't sit amongst or be amongst the house of the enemy. He wouldn't sit in any kind of authoritative position in the places that are sacred to the enemy. So this is, just my ponderings about that. Perhaps I'll have to build on that because it seems to be something that I'm seeing more and more elements about. Especially the more they keep on talking about it. And I'm thinking about the timing of everything because when you think about what's intended for April 30th, the enemy knows. The enemy knows that's planned, that's desired, and that there's a certain desired outcome from that. So they know they won't be able to try something that would be clearly, counter productive during that time, right? So what would the enemy do? How would the enemy be able to find a way to either infiltrate and attack or to change the focus and direction of the cause? The momentum I'm talking about. Look at all the momentum surrounding brother President Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso. So much so that he is becoming a very shining light all across Africa, all across the world. How would you snuff that light out? If lying on him won't work, if trying to unalive him doesn't work, what would you do? How would you get the attention of the world off of this man? You would have to pull a very fancy card trick. You would have to pull a very fancy trick. What kind of trick could that be? It's the same trick that America performed. Think about America and all the presidents except for one were white. And just when the people were beginning to be disturbed by the powers that be, they pulled a trick. Here before you is a black president running, a black candidate for president, running for president. People are seeing this. They're hoping that it comes to pass. Next thing you know, as it gets closer to election day, you start seeing the votes and the interest and the support. Next thing you know, you have your first black president of the United States. Let me remind you that the way something begins, the nature of that beginning is still there. If you begin something on a corrupt foundation, it remains corrupt all the way through until that corruption is eradicated. Has the corruption that the United States was built upon, its enslavement of human beings, its corrupt treatment of those same human beings, its corrupt treatment of the natives that were living in the land that it invaded and occupied. Did it repatriate for those actions? I mean, did it repair? Not repatriate. Did it repair the damages? You understand? Did it provide any form of reparations? That's the word I was looking for. Reparations for those damages? Did it do any of that? Or did it simply build and continue to build its agenda on the backs of that? So then you have your first black president. Looks like you, looks like me, but doesn't speak like you. Doesn't speak, what I'm saying doesn't speak like you, meaning doesn't speak in your interest, doesn't speak for your concern or your regard. Brother and sister, what do you call that kind of a person according to existing scriptures? So now here we are again. Like I said, it's the same trick by the same people, by the same body of people who've been operating the same way all the way up until this point. Now the hype. First, get the hype. And why would they need to do this? Because the black people, the African people, the diaspora people are waking up wide awake, and they're realizing One, that they actually have power to do and stand up. Brother Ibrahim Traore realized that he could stand up, that he could harness the power. You understand? They weren't aware that he would take it this far, perhaps, or even if they were aware, perhaps they weren't aware that once the momentum goes, that they couldn't stop it in the way that they want. So here we are. How do you stop a shining light that's capable of influencing all across the globe? You've got to have a challenger. You've got to have something that people have in their mind is a greater light. Something that you've been building on for years, ever since you corrupted the source from which you derive your teachings from. You corrupted the teachings that were sent to the children of Israel and distorted and decided which books were to accept and which books were to burn. Then you corrupted the teachings of the Messiah and broke and divided that up. Burned many other things that were contrary to your agenda. Corrupted the stories so that even the natives from which the motherland, those stories derived from, wouldn't even recognize that those stories were about them. Those were their stories all along. So now when you hand it back to them, they don't even recognize it, but now they think it's your stories in your likeness, in your image. So a history of programming. You've been preparing for this moment for a long time. You knew that we would stand up eventually. And you knew that you would have to do something. A last trick in the book, literally. A last trick, a last desperate act to try to save your objective. What would that act be? That act would be putting someone in a position of authority that nobody would ever expect to be in that position in the first place, and empower him in a way that reaches across the world. So that way he can give the perception or the illusion of being holy and sacred, being, of God, a vicar of God, as they like to describe themselves. That would be enough momentum to take the spotlight away from the developments happening in the motherland. If they were to succeed, that is. If you were to be led astray, that is, and further manipulated. None of these instruments that are from their abode, which is where the synagogue of the Satan exists, none of these are guaranteed or destined to succeed. They can be defeated. But what will do that is your awareness, your alertness, your being fully observant, and then responding accordingly, not allowing them to deceive you and trick you again. Stand up for your brother and don't allow the same tactics to happen again. Don't allow what happened to Sankara to happen again. This is the thing they do. They like to try to do one of two things. They will either arrest you and take you away so that you can be exiled away, out of sight, out of mind, or they will make you a martyr. To be honest, I don't think they want to make Ibrahim Traore a martyr, because that would be more of an impact, not less. It would have a greater effect in the hearts and minds of all, because it would be a clear evidence of the nature of the enemy at hand, an undeniable evidence. Arresting him, it wouldn't be the same effect. You understand? Because then the person is still alive. albeit but unable to, involve. So I would be on a lookout for attempts to apprehend the person, and not really attempts at the life again. But don't hold that. That's still something that's possibly on the table. But I know that they're aware of this because this is the thing they do. This would be that Christ's martyrdom uh, concept that they have in their doctrine. You understand? And they know how that can play out. So it makes sense to be vigilant, as the brother puts it, and observant on all sides, not allowing any room for any kinds of tricks. For, within the ranks, outside of the ranks, in sheep's clothing or blatant, they will try everything. All the sages, all the adepts, all the prophets, everyone that is a people of knowledge have mentioned this time and time again. This is what they do. So we have no excuse at this point, especially if you are studied in these type of things. You have no excuse to allow the same type of things to happen again. So anyway, there's that. Something to think on. Because the thing is, for me, if you already know something is not true or something is corrupted at its core, then how can you believe anything that's built upon that or stand upon it? Or how can you support anything like that? Especially when you know that it's not in your interest as a people. And how can you turn your back on the things that are in your interest? Why is it a challenge? Why did we have to get to this point to where we finally think to unify around a common cause and look to the interest of protecting the leadership of that cause? Why did it take so long? How many had to die? How many had to lose their lives prior to this? And so we cannot let it happen again. We have to see that the only reason why we're not empowered is because we refuse to stand up. We refuse to manifest that power. We refuse to accept that God helps those who help themselves. Why not, if you're in doubt, why not test this concept out that God helps those who help themselves? As a nation of people, this is something that if you were observing the world from outside, this is something you could not miss. Look at all these people gather for a common cause. Something must be going on here. Perhaps we should get a closer look. Perhaps they may need our help. We see that they're outnumbered. We see that they're outgunned. We see that they're out-teched. Perhaps we should come from where we are in the heavens, in the cosmos. Perhaps we should come to their aid and help them. It is what it is, family. Just things to think about, because that's what thinking people do. But the thing about that is we also have to not only think about it, but we also have to manifest the proper actions about it. And that's what I'm going to say. I hope that you have an enjoyable rest of your evening. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And by all means, please do what you can to support the Light Dome Academy. The links are in the description now. Your donations, your support, be well appreciated, and Asante Sana in advance. This is your brother, Abdul Wadud, aka Questman, of Soul Journey of Life. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Shalom, Peace and blessings be with you. Hotep. Take care.